Good afternoon and welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns short news here on DLive and YouTube. Notice that there's no Periscope. I have now finally shut off my Periscope account because I'm done with them. All right. Gonna wait a couple of seconds while we wait for some people to get into the stream, but today is April 19th or 18th, sorry. 2019, and we're going to talk about Brexit today because we've got great news coming out of the United Kingdom, and it's stuff that we need to talk about and in every way imaginable. So before we get started, look, if this is the first time you're watching me, please bang the like and subscribe button. It's really important. We just passed 2,300 people on YouTube, but I'm trying to get to 200 people over on DLive so that I can hit the next level of partner over there, and we'll see if that platform's capable of taking off. And if so, if it is capable of taking off, then it will become a great alternative to YouTube and YouTube censorship, as well as Periscopes and everybody else's, because this has just become intolerable. So if we want things to change, we need to embrace something else as we go along here. Oh my God. Thank you, Standard Dev, for the diamond over on DLive. Really appreciate it. So you can follow my work over tomluongo.me. You can follow me on Twitter, TFL1728. You'll find my work over at strategicculture.org, as well as Money and Markets, where I should have another article up either tomorrow or Monday. We'll see. I'm going to talk about this, as a matter of fact. So this is kind of a preview of that. So let's talk about what's going on with Brexit. Oh, and one last reminder. Remember, we do live streams for about an hour and 15 minutes on Monday nights at 8 and Friday nights at 8:30. And then we do them as well during the week, a couple times here or there. So don't forget to visit my blog over tomluongo.me or the Cafe Press Store, because you can get goat swag. Cool stuff. All right, let's get started. So, Brexit. Last week, Theresa May sealed the deal. Finally, she went to Brussels wearing European Union blue. She and Angela Merkel were color coordinated in their they're given two fingers to Brexit, two fingers up to Brexit. It was sad. It was also probably the last level of betrayal. We've got early polling coming out now that Nigel Farage's Brexit Party has been officially launched its campaign to stand for European parliamentary elections. They're going to stand in 70 of 73 seats. The only thing that Nigel will not contest, the only seats he will not contest, are the 3 seats represented by the Democratic Unionist Party of Northern Ireland. So good on him for doing that. So so what's going on is the following. We got a couple of early YouGov polls came out. One had the Brexit Party at 27%, and then the next one had them at 23%. Highest numbers of all the parties in the UK at this point. We're talking about, like, the UK has now become Spain. It's become Germany. It's become it's become Spain. Spain's probably your best analog at this point, because Spain's got no less than 6 parties, and so is Germany, polling in double figures. To give you an idea of what the polling actually looks like, let me pop on over to my Twitter feed. I'll pop over Zero Hedge real quick, and we'll tell you what that's looking like while I pull those numbers up. Because you have the big news is not just that that the Brexit Party is at 23%. 23 to 25%. Let's call it 25%. It's that they're outpolling Labour now. Labour is now only a solid 22% for the European elections. The Conservative Party is somewhere between 15 to 17%, and that's very important, which I'm going to get into in just a minute. The Greens have surged to 9 to 10%, up from about 5. So what you're seeing is, in the same way we saw this in Germany, where as the Social Democrats in Germany lost a lot of support over the course of the last couple of years, the Greens have surged from 5% to 20%, and 5% to 8, as high as 20%, but really they settle down between 17 and 18%. And Then the Liberal Democrats are at 9%. The Change UK, which is the former independent group, somewhere between 6 and 8%. UKIP is back down to 6%, also very important. And the Scottish National Party continues to hold its 5%. What's important here is to note that the Liberal Democrats are up, Change, the independent group is up, the Greens are up. They've doubled their percentage. The Greens were only polling about 4 or 5%. And now we're looking at the Brexit Party leading the polls. Now, here's the thing. Why is this so important? I've been saying for a couple of weeks that I've expected that Tory plus Labour in the European parliamentary elections were not going to top 50%. I wasn't expecting much more than, much below 45%. To see these numbers come in at a total of less than 40% is very significant. Okay, it means that Brexit has become the defining political issue of the day. It is now defining what side of the divide you're on. You either leave or you remain. You're no longer a Tory or Labour. Those parties no longer serve a multitude of the people, a majority of the people. And the prisoner's dilemma of majoritarian first past the post voting isn't holding sway right now. Certainly not going to hold sway for European parliamentary elections, which are, of course, proportional representation. But it is a harbinger of what could happen, easily happen, in the general election, because everything has shifted so far in terms of what people want. In the 2015 general election, UKIP's percentage dropped after the referendum. In 2017, they dropped after the referendum back down as the Tories embraced Brexit. Even Labour embraced Brexit. Okay, at least officially. But they, of course, have now betrayed it. And that's what normally happens. When a protest vote rises around to the 10, 15, 16% mark, the major parties will begin to adopt their major planks into their platform, and status quo will remain, because generally speaking, for domestic elections, people will tend to vote, especially conservatives, will tend to vote with the major party to not upset the apple cart too much and not take the chance that their vote would be wasted. This is very normal human behavior and very well understood human behavior in majoritarian voting. Now, you move to proportional representation and everything changes, which is why they don't have it in the UK. It's why we'll never get it here in the United States. They want this is a control mechanism. It's a very powerful control mechanism in majoritarian voting. I spent way too much time when I was a member of the Libertarian Party arguing with people what's the best substitute voting system. And after about a month of this, I'm like, why am I wasting my time with this? It's never going to happen. And that's when I realized that the Libertarian Party was useless, other than for its ballot access, which it does have significant ballot access here in the United States, which is, by the way, incredibly hard to get. And our system is far worse than the Brits. Okay, you can get ballot access in Britain by just forming the party, and then you have ballot access. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the course of the next 4 weeks, or 4.5 weeks now. The European parliamentary elections are just over a month out. They're going to take place between the 23rd and the 26th of May, depending on the country, right? So over that entire weekend. The Brexit Party has doubled its support since it became an official party. The intentions of people were around 10, 12% a couple weeks ago. And now we're talking about 25%. Now, anything above 16% is no longer a protest vote. There's something in marketing called the 16% chasm, where a new technology, it's Edwin Rogers' idea of the diffusion of innovation theory, where you can get on a new product or a new idea or a new thing can get up to about 16%. And in politics, it's a protest vote, right? The anti-Merkel vote in Germany topped out in the form of the AfD, the Alternative for Germany Party, topped out at around 16%. They started to pull just over 17%, but they couldn't quite cross the chasm. Because once you get to 16%, then things get serious. No longer is it just protesters. No longer is it just early adopters of new technology. If we're talking iPhones or if we're talking political parties, it's the same process. In politics, it's all about rebranding from a protest vote to we're willing to stand and be the new party that represents the majority of the people's interests. We understand your pain. And the AfD haven't done this in Germany, and it's why they've sunk back to 12%. The Greens and the Social Democrats in Germany still command about 40% of the vote. About the same percentage of the vote that the Social Democrats have always traditionally had. Around 30 to 35%. The two of them together right now are polling around 34%. So it really hasn't changed. Nobody has, none of those players, none of those voters in Germany have moved to AfD, because AfD has not rebranded itself a purely what's best for Germany party. Now, they don't have anything other than immigration as an issue dividing people in Germany, that I understand, for the most part, really polarizing people. But in Britain, they've got Brexit. And Brexit is enough to completely change the political calculus. No longer is it Tories versus Labour. No longer are people even identifying themselves as Tory versus Labour. So many people are tearing up their voter, their party identification cards. So many people are just telling candidates as they canvass and MPs as they show up to go home for the weekend to meet with their constituents, to just to throw horrible shade at them, and the level of disgust is palpable all across Europe. And Nigel Farage understands this. He understands that UKIP, for example, was not moving in the direction of the majority of the country, that they were not going to be electable to the majority of the country. Doesn't matter whether UKIP is right or wrong. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that it's irrelevant. And Farage saw this coming. And when he stepped down as party leader and then had to rebuke the party completely, he understood what was coming, because he saw the betrayal of Brexit happening a year and a half ago. He saw this coming and started putting the pieces in place to form the Brexit party then. So that when it all happened, when it all came down and Theresa May finally showed that she was, Emperor Palpatine with tits, that he was ready to mount a substantive challenge. And you start with the European parliamentary elections, because it is the best advertising a new party could possibly get. And if you brand it properly and you brand your message properly, you can blow right past the chasm and become a major party. I've said it before. I've been saying it for a year now, over a year, almost 2 years now. Matteo Salvini in Italy understood what was necessary and needed to happen in order for the League, the former Northern League, to become the League and stand for all of Italy. Northern League for years was a secessionist party. They wanted nothing to do with the rest of Italy, which they felt was falling into cultural and economic collapse. They had wanted nothing to do with Rome. They were kind of like the Scottish national. They're kind of like, even in better example would be like Sinn Féin of Ireland, right? The Irish party that refuses to even stand in British Parliament. It refuses to take their seats that they've earned because they don't want to be a part of British Parliament. In a sense, the League had always been that way, and so they were easily ignored politically until Salvini came on the scene and said, "No, we're going to stand for the elections. We're going to form a coalition with Forza Italia, Silvio Berlusconi's Forza Italia, and we're going to campaign together." But while Berlusconi was always a stalking horse for the European establishment, Salvini was a stalking horse for the Eurosceptics and for the sovereigntists. And he became the dominant player in that party, in that coalition, by election day, and then took that and went 10 steps further by saying, "I stand for all of Italy," by reaching out to Five-Star Movement and forming a coalition, sealed his fate as the leader, the effective leader of Italy. We're far beyond. And today, Lega went from 9% when they first formed the coalition with Forza Italia to 13% by early December, which forced President Mattarella to pull forward elections by 2 months to stop them from becoming a major party. They were only polling 13 to 14% by the election, and then took 17.5% in the election. 2 months after the election, they were polling at 25%. They shot right past the chasm. And it was a beautiful thing to see because of the way Salvini structured his rhetoric, way he structured the campaign. Nigel Farage is going to do the same thing. He and Salvini and Viktor Orban and Sebastian Kurz to a lesser extent, and Krasinski in Poland, Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, they all, and Marine Le Pen in France, they all get it. They all know what to do and how to do this. They're all very successful at it. And that's the thing that's important here. That's what's changing all of British politics. So it's tremendous to see what's happening. So you have to understand. And so to be on, and then let's take this one step further, because I've heard multiple people tell me, oh, now Farage is just a stalking horse for the establishment, which is complete nonsense. Or even worse, he's going to split the Leave vote between them and UKIP. No, go look at the polls. In the lead up to the March 29th original Brexit date, UKIP was starting to surge towards double digits again. They've been languishing between 5 and 6%. They moved up to 10%, even as high as, I saw polls as high as 13%. Is UKIP going to make another run at the chasm? Are they going to be the Brexit party? No. They're for better or for worse, they're a damaged brand. It's kind of like the Libertarian Party here in the United States. It's completely damaged brand. Even though it has, even though it enjoys ballot access in like 45 states out of 50, nearly permanent ballot access in most of the states in the union because of continually running candidates, which is, again, I could spend hours talking about the ridiculousness of state ballot access laws here in the United States. But look at the polls. UKIP's back down to 6%. The minute the Brexit party is on the scene and a real viable alternative, UKIP support went right back down to baseline. The protest vote's gone. All those people that were willing to throw up, all those Tories, the hardline Tories, the hard right Tories, were willing to, hold their nose and throw in with UKIP, over what Theresa May was doing to betray Brexit. Now that they have a real alternative, they've moved away from UKIP. It makes perfect sense. So it's fascinating to see how this is playing out. That's my actual rant. I have been ignoring all of the things, all the comments coming in through both YouTube and the others. So I'm going to take some of those questions and comments and address them directly, and then we'll close it up. But I think that this is important because even if these numbers are inflated because it's a bump or whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. Even if Farage only takes 20 or 22%, that's still a massive blowout. Still a massive result. You could see the highest turnout for European parliamentary elections in Britain's history. That would also be fantastic. The voter turnout numbers are going to matter, and so will the thing. So I've got all right, so Skurus Rubrum over at Cyrus Rubrum over on YouTube says Farage leaving UKIP was genius. He's gathering up all those patriots who are nervous about the far right smears aimed at UKIP. UKIP is never far right. I know that. You know that. The Libertarian Party isn't far right. Neither is AFD. Neither is Viktor Orban's Fidesz party. Neither is Lega. Yada yada yada. But the media smears them effectively. UKIP and Brexit Party will form a coalition eventually that can dominate UK politics for decades to come. That I absolutely agree with. And UKIP will be the minority party in that. Fun Thing is telling me that, Tom, the polls are based on little and suppose everyone will go with Farage. They won't. Only the normies. I think UKIP is pretty low and will be in double figures. We shall see. If UKIP comes in at double figures and Farage comes in at 25%, that would be awesome, Fun Thing. I mean, that would be a full 35%, especially since the Tories are only putting hardcore Remainers up. They're not even like trying to say that they're Eurosceptic anymore. I was reading Farage's Twitter feed coming in, and he was like, "Look at the people that the Tories are putting up to stand for MEP. They haven't learned anything, and they don't care." You see, one of the things you got to remember here is that these people are very, very arrogant. They really do believe that they're entitled to these seats, and that they're entitled to they're entitled to not only the seats but the power and your vote. And they just think you're gonna, at the end of the day, that you're gonna, not go with the new guys because it doesn't matter, because you're gonna go with the people who have the experience. I got news for you. Look at the experience. What does it gain you? The MSM are actually pushing Farage as it's not a party really, and no threat where UKIP is. And no matter what is going on, it's going to be a landslide for skeptic parties for sure, and that's a good thing. All said and done, in real UK elections with first past the post system, nothing under 35% will change a thing, and that's bad. I agree completely. I understand exactly what you're saying. But, the truth is that Labour's going to be damaged by this as well. And the hardcore Remainers are all going to move to the Greens, and the Lib Dems, which they have. Look at the numbers there. And Labour, has a real problem in that a lot of people who vote Labour because they just don't like the Tories still want Brexit. And Farage is going to build that coalition. And I really think he's going to build that coalition. It's going to be fascinating to watch what happens. I wonder if the polls, Mark Damon says, I wonder if the polls continue to head the same way. Will Theresa May cancel the election? She can't cancel the election. Well, she can cancel the election by getting Jeremy Corbyn to sign on to and betray the election by signing on to a customs union before the election happens, and therefore that would cancel the extension, and then the election won't happen, and that would be the ultimate betrayal. And what Farage said in the European Parliament the other day is if she does that, then we'll win the general election. And I think he's right about that as well, which is why she won't do that. She's prorogued or she's put Parliament on recess until after the European elections. I don't think that's going to happen. Is it possible? Jonathan's asking if it's possible for the Brexit Party to storm into the British Parliament in the next general election. Again, they have to win each individual states, just like the House of Representatives here in the United States. They have to win individual elections to get people in. That's why Nigel Farage isn't a member of Parliament, because he couldn't. Because while UKIP had 15% of the vote, it wasn't enough to win. All it was enough to do was enough to swing some seats, either Labour or Tory, regardless. So the Libertarian Party is invisible to most people here. They have no brand. Well, that's not completely true, Freedom Fox, but it's certainly today. But back in 2002, 2004, 2006, when I was a member of the party, and I was an active member of the party and a member of the executive committee of Florida, and we were rising in a way, and especially if we had been a viable force when Ron Paul ran for president. We weren't. By then, the Koch brothers and the Buckley wing of the Republican Party had completely infiltrated and neutered the party. They completely destroyed it. When we're running people like Bill Weld and Bob Barr for fucking president, I got news for you. We're not a libertarian party anymore. Farage is a force of nature, although I don't really know enough about British politics to know how he will be received. He's absolutely the only player in British Parliament with the charisma, the political savvy, the guts, and the balls to pull off what's going to be pulled off. There's nobody else close to as impressive to him. Most of his opposition are amateurs compared to him. I mean, it's frightening. One of the things that when talking about geopolitics, we do that a lot on this channel. For those of you who are new, and I talk about Putin all the time. I talk about how impressive Putin is and how he outmaneuvers everybody. I get reminded by my friends who are also foreign policy experts that it's not hard to look impressive when your opposition is Obama. When your opposition is, Hillary Clinton or Susan Rice. I mean, it's not hard. Farage's competition is Jeremy Corbyn, who, if he was anything other than the weakest major party leader of all time, would have been able to stop Theresa May doing this, and Brexit would have happened, and the Labour Party would be the toast of Britain at this point. But he's too much of a pussy. He just is. He doesn't have the stones. He doesn't have the chops. In the same way that Donald Trump really doesn't have the chops. Farage has the chops. And every time I watch him, I realize, and I want to listen to him carefully, I realize just how clued in he is. And he's impressive. And he's only getting started. He'll be prime minister within 5 years. Maybe sooner. But watch this whole thing. Because here's the thing. The 15 to 18% that the Tories are polling right now in the European parliamentary elections, if they poll under 15%, they're going to poll under 25% in the general election. And if they poll under 25% in the general election and they lose 100 seats to the Brexit party, the Tories will not exist by the election after that. Because what will happen after that, because that election may wind up with a hung parliament. There may not be anybody who can form a coalition because it'll look like Germany, it'll look like Spain, right? Kind of 6 parties with double digits. And then something has to give. And once the Tories are truly vulnerable, they will lose. They will lose everything. The center of the country will continue to get behind Farage for Brexit, and he will deliver Brexit as prime minister, regardless of the legal status of Theresa May's treaty. And then that will be that, and that will change British politics forever. And probably for the better. Fun Fang then brings up the most important point, which is that you have to take into account that Farage, whilst protected to a point by his link to Trump, is not totally safe. Accidents do happen. I know, but there comes a point when if you're big enough, they can't kill you. They have to destroy you. They have to destroy your reputation before they can destroy you. That's what they've been doing with Julian Assange. They've been working for years to destroy your impression of Julian Assange. Okay? They've been working assiduously to link him to nefarious people. This is part of the reason why the Russiagate thing is so important. Okay? You got to understand that's part of the reason why they're doing this with Russiagate. They want Julian Assange. They want him shut up. They don't want him releasing the rest of whatever he's got on the CIA and MI6. And that's the thing everybody should be worried about. That's the thing that everybody's worried. That's the untold part of all this, is how dirty MI6 is. But they always prep the ground first for you to get tired of and have doubts about a person who could possibly lead you to revolt against their rule. It always works that way. And you have to, every time, you have to not allow leave your skepticism in place of the person. But I mean, come on. I've had to have this argument with people about Jordan Peterson recently, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And it's the same thing. They're going to do the same thing to Farage. And they have been. They've been trying to do this to Farage, pointing out how much money he makes, and he takes money from Russians and all this. That's all guilt by association stuff. Very typical nuts and sluts, guilt by association, Alinsky tactics. None of it matters. Nigel doesn't even listen to it, and he just keeps moving forward. And he's right to never address it. Ever. When Alistair Campbell brought it up on his page, he just looked at him like, oh, give me a freaking break about taking money. And just moved on. I mean, guys, don't get me wrong. I want to see UKIP do well as well. I do. I want to see all of these. As a matter of fact, I would like to see both the Tories and Labour destroyed. I'd like to see the British left coalesce. I'd like to see the British left break into 3 different 15% groups. And I love the fact that Paul Joseph Watson and Sargon of Akkad are going to stand as MEPs. They need to. It's time for those guys with that kind of voice, with that kind of pull, with that kind of charisma. It's time. It's absolutely time. Freedom Fox asked me on YouTube, does Tulsi Gabbard have the chops? The establishment seems pretty scared of her when you look at how thoroughly she's been smeared by the MSN the moment she announced. I think Gabbard has the moral courage is the word I'm looking for. I absolutely believe that Tulsi Gabbard has the moral courage. I don't know. So that if she has the moral courage, she has the strength and the willingness to be vilified. And if she has the strength and courage to be vilified for who she is and what she believes, she's going to do fine. She may not get through the quagmire of the Democratic primary session, but she's going to learn a lot about being on the national stage, even if this campaign of hers fails in 2020. Okay? What I would and Lee Stranahan brought it up yesterday when I was on. Was it yesterday morning? Yeah, it was yesterday morning when I was on with him and Garland on Fault Lines. He brought it up. He says his dream ticket is Rand Paul leading a Libertarian Party ticket with Tulsi Gabbard underneath, saying, "Look, we're not running as radical libertarians. We're just using it for the ballot access rules because otherwise you can't get a party off the ground in the United States." And he's absolutely right about that. And you get the two of them together to form a Lega / 5-star movement style populist, center-right, center-left populist movement against the two major parties. And that's the insurgency you run. And love to see that happen. Don't think it's going to happen. Would love to see it happen. I think that is the only hope we have from an electoral perspective to change what's happening here in the United States. And here's the gig. We have the template for it in Italy. It's easy with proportional representation. Now you got to pull it off in a first past the post system in the UK. And if it happens in the UK, just like Brexit gave all these closet Trump supporters the spine to go out and vote for him against Clinton, against the Clinton machine, if Farage pulls off a miracle or pulls off the revolution peacefully in Britain over the course of the next 2 years, 2 or 3 years, by 2024, that ticket or some ticket like that is very possible. So it's incumbent upon the Libertarian Party this year or next year to maintain their ballot access status in as many states as possible, to set the stage to welcome that center right, center left. That's if the party is smart enough to understand what value it actually holds. I don't know that it is. And I'm not a member of it anymore, but if I was their political strategist, I would have gotten I would have excised Wayne Allen Root from the party. I would have banned the Koch brothers from the room and all of their operatives. Piss on all of it. I would have been very unlibertarian about it. Because the Libertarian Party, capital L, capital P, is not a libertarian organization. Though the people who run it keep thinking that they are. No, you're involved in politics, for Christ's sake. This is all about taking control of the friggin' state. This is blood sport, and if you're not willing to play blood sport, don't do politics. I'm not willing to do blood sport. I don't play politics. But if you want to be in the party, I would do all the blood sport I could. Absolutely. Fun Fang says, I won't be voting for the Brexit Party. I'll stick with UKIP. I don't know anyone that will change either, but I'm a pirate. So, hey, man, support UKIP. Absolutely. Remember the monster raiding looting party. Their manifesto seems quite mainstream now. Thank you, Maggie Cole. Jonathan says... Lisa says, I've heard that Tulsi won't even talk to libertarians at all. The anti-war libertarians have tried to reach out to her. Maybe. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, she may be a good party operative. She may not even be, she may be a stalking horse for the CFR. Who knows? She may be. But for now, she's saying the right thing. So you should support her up until the moment where she proves that she's not. Jonathan Gillespie says, I'd cross-vote for Tulsi Gabbard in the Democratic primary and support Trump again in the general election. I'm waiting for Rand Paul in 2024. I think so is Rand Paul. I agree, Digitup. I think that, or Dug It Up, that Farage, Paul Joseph Watson, and Sargon would uproot some old rotten status quo. It's what's got to happen. At a minimum, it's going to be, at a minimum, the Brexit Party or whatever he rebrands it, once it's a national party, not just standing for the European parliamentary elections. I think that he'll be. I think that they'll take seats and they'll become a real thorn in everyone's side. Fresh Lemon said, when someone asked me, what would you do as a politician? I said, I'd fire myself. I said, I used to run, Fresh Lemon, I ran on that platform. As a matter of fact, I ran on the platform saying, look, I would go to Tallahassee. I ran for State House back in 2002. I would go to Tallahassee to ensure that I would never have to go there and do any work. If I ever ran for something like dog catcher, many libertarians have said I'm going to run for dog catcher and public weigher and all these stupid offices that are on the books in states like Texas and Oklahoma and even Florida and others. Like, look, this thing serves no purpose. All it is a title for somebody to make some money. Like, let's get rid of the salary. I'll vote. Vote me into that office, and I will close that office the day, and I will never serve a day, and I will not take $1 of my salary, and I will close the office down. If I could do just one thing, I'd disband the FOMC. Well, that's a good luck with that, dude. Salvini's trying to get the Italian sovereign gold back from the Bank of Italy. We'll see how well he pulls it up. Labor's not going to sweep anything, Franz. Please go back to whatever hole Soros found you and decided to pay you $12 an hour to pollute my streams. All right, so that's about what I got, guys. I'm not going to do this for much longer. We are at 36 minutes, which is way longer than it needs to be. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for your donations on DLive. Don't forget, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's 41 people watching on YouTube right now. If you would all go over to DLive and make an account and follow me over there, we need to get me up to 200 subscribers so that I can hit the next level of status. At that point, we open up things like subscriptions and higher priority for transcoding my streams into replays and all the rest of that. So it would just be good overall. And it's a platform, I think, at this point that has more potential for growth for all of us than YouTube does. And we should just use YouTube as a way to funnel people over onto this platform. And if it turns out to be, a worthless piece of shit livery, well, guess what? We'll go back to YouTube and we'll be no worse for wear. Yeah, I mean, don't give Gabbard too much shit at this point. Remember, she's trying to get into the Democratic primary, and she's trying to make her name for herself there. If she associates with the Libertarians, she's done within the Democratic Party. She will lose all internal support within the Democratic Party. Don't think for a moment that she's not aware of her opportunities as an independent candidate. She cannot talk about it whatsoever. Okay? It would not be in her political best interest to do so. And that in and of itself tells me that she's got enough savvy to understand what the stakes are. She's playing for higher stakes then, if that's the case. And that's very, very smart. All right, so you guys take care. This has been great. I've really enjoyed it. As always, join in for the fun tomorrow night at 8:30. We'll do this again, about 20 minutes worth of opening remarks, and then we'll open it up for questions, and we'll do a longer version of this. As always, you guys take care. You have a great afternoon, and we will talk soon. Keep your stick on the ice.